Alright, so I have a project going on today that I'd like to share with you guys. It is on my 1973 Mercedes 280 SE, which is a w108 body style. The project is to completely replace the complete set of the rear brake pads and rotors. So right here I have my set of new brakes. So this is for the driver's side, which is identical on the passenger side. I already completed that one. Want to share with you how to do the driver's side. I have two new brake pads. I have all the springs, pin that locks the bolts in. I have new emergency brake pads, and of course my new rotor. So I will do this video step by step. And the first step, of course, is get all your tools, get the car set up, jack it up, take the hubcap off, the wheel off, and then I will continue from there. So I will get started. I took off the wheel, got the car jacked up, and this is what you see. There's the rotor, there's the caliper. The brake pads are inside, and the emergency brake pads are inside the caliper underneath it. I will show you once I have that off. So the first step from here is then to take off the caliper with the brake pads. Back here, what you see back here is the two bolts. And you can see them right there. These two bolts do have a locking pin, which I can show you on the spare ones I have off of a different axle. So the way it goes in is like this. And you have to bend these tabs out before you can unscrew the bolt and then remove the brake caliper. I will do that and pick up the video. Once you bent out the tabs right here and undone these bolts, one here, you remove them, which will now free your rotor, and you'll be able to slide, I'm sorry, not your rotor, your caliper, and you'll be able to slide it off the rotor. Just be careful, it does have a rigid metal brake line, not a flexible one. When you take it off, be careful, support it, don't let it drop, don't let that line break. I have the caliper off to the side. The rotor now does come off, and that will show you now where the emergency brake pads are. So there's the mechanism for the emergency brake. After removing the brake rotor supporting the caliper, the next step would be to disassemble the emergency brake mechanism. The way it's held in place is you take your needle nose pliers, you go into this spring, and there's two, one per brake pad. You press it in and you twist 90 degrees. Put the car in neutral so then you can access it using that hole in different positions by rotating the wheel. Grab that spring, twist it 90 degrees. Sometimes you have to fight it a little bit. If you can't get that off, you can use your dikes and simply cut the stem. But only do this if you got a new spring with the set. And there's a second one down on the bottom. Right over there. So I will rotate. So that you can see it right over there. And I will use my pliers again to remove it. As you can see, I was able to twist this one and pull it out. That's what it looks like. Next step is to remove the spring on this side that holds them together right there. After you have unlatched that spring, which you can see I unhooked it on the bottom. Right, hard to get the phone to focus on this. It's that spring down there. I unhooked it on the bottom. After you've completed that, you will be able to remove the brake pads. And there will be a second spring, but it's actually held from back behind that you can't get to it until you remove the brake pads. Here's the adjuster. And there's the cable mechanism. I do see that there is oil around here, which means I will have to replace the seal on this axle, and that will be another project for another day. So I will reverse the process and install the new brake pads for the emergency brake, and then I will show you how to remove the brake pads for the rear from inside this caliper, and then you would just reverse the process to put the new ones back in. I have my new emergency brake pads in place. I have the new springs in place, adjuster, and I will proceed. What I found works best for this next step is to put the caliper back in place using those two bolts without the rotor. And the way you remove these brake pads is you take a punch and you punch these two stems out, this one and this one. Then you would take them and slide them completely out from the back. This retaining spring would come out, and then the pads would just pull out simply through the top. You do not have to take the rotor back off. The caliper, I'm sorry. When you're ready to put the new ones in, make sure you depress the caliper, and you do have to depress both sides. Caliper does not move like the modern cars do, so you do have to depress the pistons on both sides of the caliper before you put the new pads back in and the rotor back on. I have the new rotor in place. Then I put the caliper back in place. I screwed it in. Don't forget to place the new locking pin or the new locking metal strap underneath the bolts. So that once you tighten it, you can bend those tabs in and that will lock those bolts from coming loose. After you have the caliper in place, you can slide the new brake pads in. Don't forget to use grease. And I will show you that these pins come in from the back through both pads. And do not forget to place your spring in place before you put the second pin in. Now that I have the pins installed, I have the spring installed, I have the caliper tightened, I have the tabs. Back there is the last step for me to bend. That will complete my brake job. Be safe, enjoy, thank you.